I am coming as a parent of a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. So I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. And then I have previous experience in the classroom teaching 2-year-olds. So I used to teach 2-year-olds in group care. So that is kind of my frame of reference as a parent joining today. So today we're going to talk about developing our children's emotional regulation skills through everyday experiences at home with our kiddos. So either your kiddo is just starting to experience this wide range of emotions, or your child is starting to just express them differently. Children come at us from lots of different angles. So we have, the 2-year-old who's having a giant meltdown on the floor because they want a cookie, to the 7-year-old yelling, "I hate you, you're the worst parent ever." And then kind of anywhere in between. So these meltdowns and outbursts are a typical part of development. But as our children are having difficulty expressing their emotions, we know that they're having a hard time self-regulating. So really, as we look at self-regulation, we're looking at kind of that comparison between a 2-year-old who really has no other skills other than having like this full-blown meltdown and his hitting and biting and things like that in order to express themselves, to this 5-year-old who has a little bit more control and understanding of their emotions. And so as we're thinking about self-regulation, I want you to compare in your mind like this 2-year-old who just can't handle themselves and a 5-year-old who has more capacity to say like, "I'm really mad at you right now," or has kind of more control over their emotions. Is it going to look perfect with a 5-year-old? Absolutely not. We as adults still struggle emotionally. There are times that I want to have a giant tantrum on the floor. But self-regulation is a skill that develops over time and over a long period of time. And so when we think in our minds of this difference between a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old and how they might handle a situation that might be challenging, you can kind of see in your mind this development of those self-regulation skills. So to introduce myself and kind of jump into things, my name is Lauren. I am the Family Support Specialist with Child Care Answers. So in my role, I help families locate childcare. I help offer support and guidance around childcare and school-age programs. And then I also do parenting support and parenting workshops. All of that is free of charge. So there is no charge for families. I am accessible to whatever level you want to be supported. So sometimes it's just sending a resource. Sometimes it's meeting via Zoom and kind of talking about things. And sometimes it's weekly check-ins to be like, I just need another adult who gets me, to understand what I'm going through and just to talk to. So you can kind of utilize me however much or as little as you choose to do so. And my email is up on the screen. It's just laurenG@childcareanswers.com. So I work for Child Care Answers, and we are very active on social media. So if you are not familiar with our social media, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and join us and like us on YouTube. So our YouTube channel is where we house all of our recordings. Not only do we house recordings of our webinars, but we also house recordings of little videos, little parenting snippets that we make. So that's a really great place to look, as well as going to our website. We have a Your Child page that's a bunch of parenting tips and resources, and it's just childcareanswers.com/yourchild. And Child Care Answers is part of a larger network of resource and referral agencies. We are housed in Central Indiana, but there are others throughout the entire state. I can be your link to your local resource and referral agency if you do not happen to fall in Marion, Hendricks, or Hamilton counties. You can still utilize me and contact me, and I can always refer you along if need be. So today we're going to talk about how we promote children's self-regulation skills. So really looking at what is self-regulation, how do we co-regulate alongside of a child? ensuring that we ourselves are regulated. So am I expecting my child to do something that I am not fully capable of doing on my own? Or maybe I am capable of it, but I don't choose to go that route very often. So are my expectations in line with child development? We'll talk about some supportive strategies on really helping your children regulate. And then we'll look at regulation skills by different age groups. So some things that let us know that our child is starting to develop regulation, looking at our toddlers all the way through our school agers. And then we'll leave some time for questions and a little survey or poll at the very end. So I want you to get in kind of this mindset of thinking about a time that you were super angry or frustrated, or even a time that you were really, really excited, or maybe a time that you were sad, tired, hangry. So think about one of those times where you're feeling big emotions. So when you're feeling big emotions, and I'm feeling super, super angry, how do I express anger? Or how do I allow myself time to calm down? So what are those strategies that you might use in order to deal with those big emotions? Yeah, so shut down. You want time to yourself. You might take deep breaths or close your eyes, walking away. Usually get quiet or remove myself. So oftentimes I see adults specifically say, like, I need some space. I walk away, I get my space, I go be by myself, and then I feel better. Well, if we think about a child doesn't necessarily have the capacity to recognize, hey, I'm feeling really angry right now. I'm going to go walk away, take some deep breaths and compose myself. I'll be back when I feel better, right? Children don't have that ability. However, children have these same feelings. So children are experiencing the same feelings and emotions that we are feeling. However, they don't know how to express them the same way we do. We have learned over years and years and years what works best for us, and additionally, what we need to do in order to self-regulate. So I know that when I'm feeling really, really angry, that I'm going to take a deep breath. I might walk away. I might say, like, I'm really mad right now. Please leave me alone. And I'm going to go feel better. Where a child doesn't even have the ability sometimes to say, I'm angry. They don't know what that is inside of them. I tell my daughter to take deep breaths and she screams back, no deep breaths. Yeah, so part of her knows that if I take a deep breath, I'll feel better. And I don't want to feel better right now. I like feeling angry. I need to get my feelings out. Don't tell me to calm down. Sometimes telling children to take deep breaths is the same thing as telling an adult to calm down. And I've never seen an adult calm down when someone told them to calm down. Yeah, so some children, the deep breaths is going to be like, okay, yes, let's do this. And others are going to be like, don't tell me to take a deep breath right now. Yeah. So we all approach things differently, and children are the exact same way. So as they get older, they're going to develop those abilities to regulate. And for like my son, telling him to take a deep breath is gonna like set him off, because to him it's hearing like, you need to calm down. But for him, if I say, wow, you are really upset right now, or you're feeling really angry, or I see that you're having a hard time, do you need a hug? Magic phrase, snaps him right out of it. Yes, I need a hug, because physical touch is really, really important to him. With my daughter, she wants no part of physical touch. So if I give her some prompts like, breathe with me, she will take her deep breaths and she will calm, because I've prompted her how to do that. So as she gets older, that might be something that she begins to do on her own. She also really likes when I sing the Daniel Tiger angry song. So she might say, sing the angry song. And so I'll sing, when you feel so mad that you want to roar, take a deep breath and count to 4. And so she likes to do the roar, and then she'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. I feel better now. And Daniel Tiger is magic, blowing up balloons. And that is a great strategy to kind of reframe it from taking a deep breath to actually physically imagining you're doing something. So a lot of the strategies of taking a deep breath or pretending to be a pretzel are from conscious discipline. And they're really imagining kind of this full body release of emotions and frustration. So it's blowing up the balloon and then letting the air out. And what I love about the blowing up the balloon, which I'm so glad you mentioned, is that at the end, you can kind of make it silly. So I've gotten my emotions out, but now I'm going to be silly, which is going to distract me and redirect me into more positive thinking. So I'm going to blow my balloon up. And then I'm going to let the air out. And as I let my air out, I'm kind of getting all of those feelings out. I'm being silly and I'm feeling better. So in children, it's really giving them these tools to regulate because they don't have them like we do. And you all provided some really fantastic strategies on not only how you regulate, but then some tools that you can give children in order to help them regulate as well. So self-regulation is really this ability to understand and manage our behavior and our reactions to feelings and things happening around us. It's the ability to take all of this stuff happening and to kind of process and deal with all of it. So when we're shopping on Black Friday and it's crazy and there's two ladies fighting next to us for the last Instapot, it's being able to take in all of the stimuli and to be able to take a deep breath and deal with it without us getting anxious and worked up. And if we are getting anxious and worked up, we have the capacity to manage those behaviors by walking away, taking a deep breath, doing something that's going to calm us down. And we oftentimes think about self-regulation as far as those kind of negative behaviors like anger, sadness, frustration, but it's the same for excited. Especially children who have ADHD, they get really, really, really excited and then they have a hard time calming down from that. That was one of my big indications that my son had ADHD, is because he would get really, really, really excited and then could never come down from that for the rest of the day. And looking back on it, as a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, when he would get really excited, he would bite me. And so thank goodness he didn't bite in childcare, because all we needed was the son of the infantile care specialist biting in childcare. He would mostly bite me, and mostly out of excitement, because he had this big, big, big feeling and emotion, and he didn't know how to manage the behavior behind that feeling. So that was one of the first feelings words that we taught him. So instead of biting mommy, you can squeeze your fists and say, I'm so excited. And so when he would get really, really excited, he would squeeze and shake and go, I'm excited. And that shake and the squeeze, like as he tensed up, he was able to release those big emotions and then start to deal with them and kind of understand and regulate what was coming at him. Another piece of self-regulation is being able to focus on a task. And being able to focus on a task is a huge kindergarten readiness skill. Kindergarten readiness isn't knowing their shapes, their colors, their letters. It's being able to regulate. It's being able to get really mad at a peer and not hit them in the head with a block like I might have when I was 2. It's being able to calm down when we're having a party and I'm really excited and I'm full of sugar, and that I don't lose then my marbles, right? It's being able to focus on a task that my teacher has given me and to be able to carry out that task. And when I am frustrated, to be able to persist through frustration. It's able to refocus. So I was working on this task, we transitioned to something else, and I was able to successfully stop what I was doing and refocus my attention onto something else. It's also about controlling my impulses. So I might want to hit you in the head with a block, but I know better, and I've learned other skills to now say, I had that. Can you please give that back? or to say, when you're done, can I have a turn, please? Skills that a 1 and a 2-year-old just don't have yet, that are starting to develop around age 3 and really continue through the 20s. So it takes a lot of time to develop these skills. And additionally, self-regulation is learning how to control behavior that helps you get along with other people. So it helps you be a good friend, so that the attention doesn't always have to be about me. I don't always have to be the boss or the leader, that I'm able to take somebody else's perspective, that I can understand when you're feeling sad and I'm going to comfort you, or I'm going to allow you to choose what game we're going to play this time and I get to choose next time. So self-regulation isn't easy. It's not something that develops overnight. However, there is a lot that we can do, even with babies, that help them to begin to develop some self-regulation skills. And so if we think about self-regulation as this kind of ability to do all of the things that I just mentioned, we're basically creating a child who's ready to go off into the world and go off into school. Someone who can regulate their thinking, their emotions, and their behavior so that they can be a successful student and a successful learner later in life. They can be a successful friend. They can be a successful coworker. They can get along with other people, and they're not super short-tempered. And so that is really what self-regulation is. So you can almost look at it as our internal thermostat. So just like a thermostat regulates heat, it lets us know, oh, our room's getting a little too warm, I need to kick on the AC. Our body is kind of doing that same thing. It starts to pick up on these little feelings that we're having inside of us to kick on systems that allow us to then process those emotions and feelings. So I know when I start getting an upset stomach, or I start getting really, really hot, or I start getting tense, that tells me I'm feeling a certain emotion. And then I know these certain processes that my body needs to go through in order to bring that down. And for a lot of adults, like you mentioned, it's walking away, it's taking a deep breath, it's having time for ourselves, it's being able to talk about our feelings and emotions with somebody who understands us. And so that is really kind of our own internal kind of thermostat to our feelings and our emotions. So when children are really able to translate things that they see or experience in life, like a soothing touch or the sound of a soft voice, or the gentle cue of someone putting their finger on their lips to tell you to be quiet, then children are then able to kind of take in that information to begin to regulate their thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. So they're taking in all of these cues, all of these experiences, all of the information that they're taking in, and then translating that into kind of their own internal experiences. So as we're helping children develop self-regulation skills, we need to do what's called co-regulation. So this means that when our children are getting super worked up, that we are co-regulating alongside of them, that we are not only providing them tools to regulate, but those tools then we're doing ourselves so that we are also remaining regulated, because a dysregulated adult cannot regulate a child. It is essential in order to regulate a child, in order to teach a child how to regulate, that the adult themselves is regulated. Because when I am yelling at you for yelling at me, nothing is getting solved here. We have just entered a power struggle. And do you know who wins in a power struggle? It's not the adult. So it's really, really important that when our children are having a hard time, that we are co-regulating with them. So that means that we're providing this warm, responsive relationship. We're structuring the environment to be successful, and then we're teaching them regulation skills. So when we're providing this warm, responsive relationship, what this means is that children feel that they are respected as individuals, so that you are not above me in this moment, that you are my equal, you respect me, you understand how I'm feeling, and you won't judge me for how I'm expressing myself right now. You're going to provide comfort and support in times of stress, which is going to in turn create a child who's confident that they're going to be cared for no matter what. So no matter how bad I'm feeling, you will still be there to comfort and care for me. And what this really creates is a positive relationship that promotes self-efficacy and allows children to feel secure enough to practice new skills and learn from their mistakes, which is huge. So learn from their mistakes physically, but also emotionally, socially, and cognitively. And this is because I trust my caregiver to be there when I need them. As we're structuring the environment, we're really looking at an environment that is physically and emotionally safe for children to explore, so that they're able to kind of go out into the world and learn in this environment that is safe. So we're taking away maybe environmental stressors, creating an environment that's physically safe, but also emotionally, an environment where I'm saying, you're okay, you got this. You go do what you need to do in this space. You feel the way you need to feel, and you express yourself. And then I won't judge you, and I'll give you tools in order to express yourself in what is culturally and emotionally appropriate. And it's also creating consistent and predictable routines. So predictability is key for children to know what to expect, know what's expected of them, and to kind of be less stressed. So adults and children thrive on expectations and consistency, which promotes a sense of security. So we have kind of this emotional security of someone who's there for me. They'll comfort me regardless of how I feel. And then I have this environmental security where I have predictability and consistency with my day. And lastly, I have that adult who alongside of me is going to teach and coach me self-regulation skills. They're going to model how they regulate. They're going to provide opportunities for me to practice regulation when things aren't stressful. And they're going to reinforce those self-regulation skills. So in this picture, you see a mom and a daughter practicing yoga. So this is a prime example of not only the parent practicing self-regulation skills, but also providing practice in a non-stressful situation. So sitting down next to each other and practicing deep breathing, practicing meditating, practicing stretching, doing these things when I'm not feeling anxious or when I'm not feeling frustrated or when I'm not feeling overwhelmed, which is teaching my body how to calm itself when we're not even stressed. So when those stress responses do kick in, with some scaffolding or some gentle reminders, I can be reminded, remember how deep breathing helped you feel better? This is the time to use deep breathing when you're starting to feel a little anxious or you're starting to feel a little overwhelmed. Just like I might practice sharing skills with a toddler, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, I'm going to practice self-regulation skills when we're not feeling big emotions so that when we do feel them, we know how to handle them with a little bit of reminding. So when we think about self-regulation as a skill that needs to be taught rather than just a child acting out or a child having bad behavior, it changes the way we think about it. So just the way that I would support a baby as they're learning how to walk, and I'm going to be right beside them and provide them emotional and physical support, I'm going to look at self-regulation the same way. I need to be right beside you, teaching you the skills because you don't yet have them, and I need to be emotionally and physically available to you. I think we have a question. So Courtney says, what are some ideas for practicing self-regulation? And I'm going to give you those strategies in just a second. So I'm not quite ready to share that yet, but I think that as I'm chatting and talking, you'll get some of those, and then you'll have some handouts at the end that I'll share with you as well. So the best way that you can help your child learn to self-regulate is to provide support when they need it. So it's talking about emotions with your child. It's encouraging your child to name the emotion that they are feeling. to help them find different ways to react to strong emotions, and then to remember to be patient. We want to remember ourselves to be patient, but also remind them when they're not stressed that this is a skill that develops over time. So you're not going to perfect this right away. And so especially our school agers have a really hard time understanding that I can't switch from being frustrated back to fine like this. And they see us do that. And I use that in quotes because we don't really flip that quickly. But they need to see us kind of work through the process so that they know it's okay, that it's not going to happen overnight. And then we ourselves need to be patient as our children are learning these skills. So we talk about emotions. So read books, sing songs, watch Daniel Tiger, talk about feelings when our children aren't feeling these emotions. Use pictures. Do emotional check-in boards where they have pictures of emotional faces and they get to tell you where they are. And then when you do start noticing these emotions, start to point them out in your child. You look happy. I know you're happy because you're smiling and you're jumping up and down. Or I know you're hungry because you're starting to get a little cranky and it's been about 3 hours since you ate last. Or I see you're feeling mad because your cheeks are red and your arms are crossed, so that they can start to kind of understand those same things within themselves and start to recognize them themselves. And then encourage your child to name their emotions by giving them kind of the tools to do so. So even at 18 months, as they're getting more and more words, we're teaching emotional language alongside of language. So I'm labeling ball, but I'm also labeling sad. I'm labeling the truck outside, but I'm also labeling happy, so that they develop emotional language. So when your child is starting to feel these things, you can say, you tell her that makes me mad. Or tell your brother, I don't like it when you take my toy. That makes my heart sad. So that they're starting to be able to really label and name their feelings and emotions. And then provide them strategies to express that emotion in an appropriate way. So usually, kind of the rules I set around feelings is that it's okay to feel any feeling. There are no bad feelings, but there are inappropriate behaviors that are tied to feelings. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. Crying is a great way of releasing those big emotions. It is not okay to hit someone. It is not okay to hurt someone or something. So you can set some rules and limits around that. And then as you're telling them what you don't want them to do, it's important that you are giving them then strategies on what to do. So you may not bite mommy, but you may squeeze your fists and say, I'm so excited. You may jump up and down. You may go put your head out the door and scream. You may read a book. You may take some deep breaths. You may squeeze a pillow. You can go pet the dog. You can ask for a hug. You may not bite me. So it's giving them appropriate ways to deal with big emotions that maybe you decide in your house, or you and your child decide together. Kind of setting that limit on it's not okay to hurt yourself or hurt something else or somebody else. So some behavioral strategies that can help children regulate is, number one, planning for challenging situations. So it's really hard for children to behave well all the time and in all settings. So this means I still go to the things that are challenging, but I plan for them. So I'm going to anticipate transitions. If we have to leave the house in 20 minutes, I'm going to start preparing you for that transition now rather than 20 minutes from now, so that you have time mentally and physically to prepare for that transition. And this may look like verbal reminders. It may look like setting timers. It may look like using visuals. It may look like starting the process of transitioning and getting ready. It all may look different, but it's preparing them for that transition. My 7-year-old who has ADHD has a really, really hard time transitioning. So even going somewhere he really wants to go, he throws a big fit about transitioning. And he's like, I don't want to go there. He starts yelling, he starts screaming, he starts having a really hard time knowing that something else is coming. And so what we do is we really talk to him about the transitions. We prepare him ahead of time. We set clear expectations. So we have karate tonight. So yesterday I said, we have karate tomorrow. This morning I said, we have karate tonight. At 4:30, a half an hour before we need to go to karate, I will say in 30 minutes, it's time to go to karate. I'm going to have him set Alexa so that he has some kind of ownership in the transition process. Tell Alexa to set a timer for 15 minutes. And I shouldn't have said that out loud because she's going to think I'm talking to her now. And when you hear the beep, 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 then it's time to start putting our shoes on. After you put your shoes on, this is what we're going to do. So kind of setting that stage for what the transition is going to look like. Offering reminders along the way. I heard her go off. What does that mean we need to do next? And then for some children who have a really hard time with challenging situations, and this may be a particular outing, this may mean like going back to school for the first time post-COVID. This may look like their first time going to kindergarten, those huge transitions. Social stories can be really beneficial. And what a social story is it's essentially a story about them or another child going through this transition. So you can write the story, you can purchase social stories. One in particular might be about toileting. So you're reading a story about the child toileting, ideally with pictures of the actual area in which they will be going to the bathroom, about the whole toileting process, in order to reduce fears and frustration and plan for what's going to come. When we do this, we know what to expect, we have consistency, and we can also see ourselves in someone else's story. And for young children, the very first step of self-regulation is being able to see it in somebody else. So this is the child who begins to tattletale on someone else, and it becomes to the adult a frustrating behavior. Stop tattletaling, stop tattletaling. But what this really means is that they're beginning to understand the rules, they're beginning to understand right from wrong, and they're recognizing it in a peer. They're seeing it in somebody else. So they're drawing attention to it. And that is actually a good clue to let us know that our child is beginning to develop these skills. If they can see it in someone else, then they know what's expected. They have a clear idea of those expectations and how to manage those emotions. They just don't yet have the capacity internally to do it themselves. They're almost there. And so that's a really good tool to see when we're seeing kind of reframing tattling into, oh, you're starting to get these things. It's starting to connect. You're almost there. Another behavioral strategy is to praise often. So the more things we draw attention to, the more we're going to get back. So those behaviors that we praise and we draw attention to are the behaviors we're going to see more often than if we were to kind of ignore other behaviors. And similarly, if we are constantly drawing attention to negative behaviors, then those are typically the behaviors we'll see more. So we want to draw attention to the positive behaviors and praising when they do regulate. So saying things like, you are great at waiting for your turn. Or as my daughter says, it's hard to wait. And I'll say, you are right, it is hard to wait. You are doing a great job waiting. Or saying things like, I like the way that you shared with Sam when he asked. So letting them know, I see you did it and I'm proud of you. And when we praise, we're basically telling the child, do more of that. And they usually come through. Another behavioral strategy is modeling. So it's modeling when we are feeling emotions and how we might manage them. So I might say, wow, that was hard. I'm glad I didn't get angry because I might not have been able to do it. So basically kind of verbalizing that I was struggling, but I kept going And look, I was able to do it. And this is especially true for children at home doing e-learning right now to help them kind of push through. We're seeing a lot of these kind of difficulties in regulating, especially coming to with e-learning as they're starting to learn at home rather than at school. So being able to model our own struggles is going to help our child then learn how to regulate. Another behavioral strategy is using hints and clues. So it's cueing in our child that they might need to regulate. So a gentle touch on your child's back to help them relax, or putting your finger up to your lips to tell them to lower their voice, or putting your finger on your ear to remind them to listen. So these are things that we can give children as gentle cues and hints that, hey, remember, let's regulate these. Or using pictures, images, and timers. And then things like breathe with me, or let's blow up our balloon together. These are all going to be cues and clues to our child on what they can do to regulate. Basically saying, hey, I recognize you're starting to get excited. Let's come down from that, which is then helping their body go, I'm starting to get excited. Let's come down from that. And then as our child is beginning to develop the capacity to do this independently, it's gradually withdrawing some support. So I might have had to say to my toddler, I see your body is flailing all over the place. You must be really excited. Tell mommy, I'm excited. Okay, thank you. Let's grab our fists, let's shake our hands and say, I'm excited. To a 5-year-old, and all you have to do is look at them and go like this, which is just that cue for them to begin to regulate. And over the course of my toddler to my 5-year-old, I've gradually withdrawn support in order for them to kind of be able to do it themselves. Another example of this is maybe siblings who are fighting over toys. And I might remain close, observe, and watch and see what happens. They're struggling, they're fighting, one's grabbing a toy, that's mine, no, it's mine, no, it's mine, no, it's mine. And you're just watching, waiting to see what's going to happen, not jumping in and solving the problem for them. They might then say, Mom, he took my toy. And so you give a cue or a hint to say, tell him I was playing with that. So then the child says, I was playing with that. And then the other child goes, no, I was playing with that. And so you might then give the cue to the next child to say, tell her, when you're done, can I have a turn, please? And so the child says, when you're done, can I have a turn, please? The other child says, yes, takes the toy, and they leave. So they've diffused the situation, and you've given them both the tools to regulate without coming in and solving the problem for them. So you've remained close, you've observed, and you've offered hints and cues so that ideally, as they develop more skills and capacity, you're going to start hearing those words flying without you having to be there to remind them. And so that first time you hear, can I have that when you're done, please? And you haven't had to offer that cue, you're like, ha! And 2 minutes later, they might be fighting, but you know that it's starting to develop. And that is amazing. Or that moment when you hear your 2-year-old say, I'm so mad. And you're like, yes, you are so mad. Let's talk about what you do when you get mad. So we've talked about these strategies to help your child regulate. So what does it look like when my child is regulated? How do I know that it's starting to develop? Additionally, how do I know what is appropriate for my child? So infants really require adults to manage a large portion of their regulatory needs, from feeding to temperature to control to management of stimuli. They need adults to really do everything. So, but infants are able to kind of regulate themselves a little bit. So an infant can engage in some level of self-soothing by sucking on their fingers or their hand or a pacifier or seeking the breast to nurse to reduce stress. And they oftentimes will shift their attention or gaze when they're overwhelmed or overstimulated. So this is a great example of a baby who's facing outward. So there's a lot going on. So there's a lot of management of environmental stimuli that's needing to happen. And the baby kind of just zones out. This is our cue as an adult to turn baby around so that baby now is facing our chest and able to kind of regulate themselves a little bit more. So they start to kind of zone out or tune out when they've had too much, or they suck on something when they've had too much, or when they're feeling really upset. So that is the level to which an infant can self-regulate. And really they require the adult for the most part to help them regulate. A toddler. A toddler can focus their attention for short periods of time. So when we're thinking about attention span, we're really looking at 1 minute per age as our expectation. So I'm expecting a 1-year-old to be able to focus for 1 minute. I'm expecting a 5-year-old to be able to focus for 5 minutes. And that's usually on something that I'm trying to focus them on. So that is my expectation. So when my 2-year-old can't focus for an entire cooking activity, that's to be expected. I should be expecting 2 minutes. However, when a child is really interested in something and we have followed their lead, we usually see more attention. So I would encourage you to see your child engaging or playing with something, go over to them and start engaging alongside of them. That is going to draw their attention longer and help them build attention on a task because it's something that they have drawn interest in. So the longer they show interest in something, the bigger the attention span is because they care about what they're doing. They're also able to adjust behavior to achieve goals. So this might look like a toddler or my 3-year-old whining to get something. And I might say, you know what? I don't understand you when you use your words like that. Try to tell me in a different way. And a toddler is able to adjust and say, okay, my whining isn't getting me what I want here. Maybe if I ask nicely, I can get it. So I'm saying, I want a cookie. I don't understand you when you talk like that. Can I have a cookie, please? Sure, you can have a cookie. Here you go. And really that's behavior modification. I'm rewarding the positive behavior and not showing attention to the negative behavior. I'm not going to reward the whining, but when you ask nicely, I'm going to give you what you've asked for. So toddlers are able to adjust, usually with some cues. They're also beginning to label feelings. So the more we talk to toddlers about their feelings and emotions, the more they're developing the language to be able to label them themselves. They're briefly able to delay gratification, so waiting for a turn. And they're beginning to turn to adults for help with strong emotions. So when they're feeling really, really overcome with emotion, they're going to seek an adult to help soothe them. And that goes back to that safe environment that we mentioned before. I know that you're going to love me and support me no matter what. So I know when I'm feeling really mad or really frustrated or really excited that I can come to you and you're going to help me manage those strong feelings. So a preschool age child, so our 3 to 5-year-olds, are starting to develop the brain capacity to self-regulate themselves. And when I say they're starting to, that part of their brain has just turned on. So the connections in the frontal lobe are starting to form, an area of the brain which was really switched off in our infants and toddlers. They were acting from their midbrain or their brainstem. The frontal lobe is now clicked on with our preschoolers, and they're able to start to understand this processing. They're starting to develop some impulse control. They're starting to develop some awareness that there are other ways to solve my problems than just having a tantrum or biting somebody, something that is really all the toddlers can do. So we're starting to see them recognizing this growing array of feelings in their self, but also in others. So they're starting to recognize them and label them. They're also starting to identify solutions to simple problems. So I'm stacking some blocks. My block tower keeps falling over. I'm going to adjust my base in order to be able to build my tower. Where a toddler is either going to throw them or they're just going to walk away and move on to something else. With support, they're going to begin using strategies like taking deep breaths, self-talk, doing yoga in order to calm themselves down. So all you have to do at this age really is to say, hey, I see you're having a hard time. Let's take some deep breaths together. And because that frontal lobe has started to form, they're usually going to do it alongside of you. If they're telling you that they don't want to, it's because they're not ready to calm down yet. And so strategies like, I see that you're still feeling really mad. It's okay to be mad. You let me know when you're starting to calm down, and then we can take some deep breaths together. Because some kids just need to feel mad. They need to live in that feeling. And once they've lived in it and they've been told that it's okay to live in that feeling, then they have kind of that permission to calm down themselves. They're also able to focus their attention and persist in difficult tasks for an increased length of time. So their attention span is increasing, but also the ability to persist through difficult tasks is increasing, which is huge for kindergarten readiness. Huge. And they can take some perspective. So I understand how you're feeling. I'm going to put myself in your shoes and I'm going to help you feel better. Or I'm going to stop doing things that I know bother you. This is going to start with their peers, and it's going to take a little bit of time for this to then get related to adults for the most part. So a preschool age child is going to recognize when their parent is upset and try to comfort them. But they're not going to stop doing things that make you mad because they like that attention. But they're going to stop doing things that make their friends mad because peer relationships are really important to preschoolers. So it's going to take a little bit of time for them to stop pushing your buttons, but they're going to stop pushing their friends' buttons more often. And then in school agers, they're getting better control at controlling their wants and needs. So more than just delayed gratification. We're at Target and I see a Lego set that I really, really want. And I'm not going to throw this big old fit and be like, I want it, buy it for me now. I'm getting more control at being like, hey, can I have your phone so I can take a picture of this so I can put it on my Christmas list? Is that going to happen like that all the time? No, but they have the ability to delay and to understand how to control their wants and needs. Or to be able to say, hey, I really want this Lego set. I have $10 at home. I will give you my $10 if you can give the other 10 for this Lego set. So they're going to start negotiating in order to get their needs met. And they have an increased availability in imagining other people's perspectives and kind of seeing both sides to a situation. So they're going to start helping their friends negotiate, but also standing up for the friend who's being wronged, which is really, really cool to see in school agers. And so as a side note, when we're thinking about all of these children, this is especially true for my children, is that children who typically feel things really strongly or intensely find it harder to self-regulate. So it's going to take these children a little bit longer to develop these skills than your easygoing go with the flow kid. So your easygoing go with the flow kid is going to learn how to manage and deal with their emotions much faster than your child who feels things pretty intensely as who they are. So there are definitely temperament styles. And so your slow to warm or your easygoing temperament is going to learn self-regulation skills faster and with less adult support than your feisty child. And it is what it is. It's the same with adults. Your feisty temperament adults have a harder time co-regulating than your easygoing adults. And I know that is true for myself. I know it's true for the environment that I was raised in. And I know when my husband gets really, really mad that he's serious. And when I get mad, I'm just mad. And I was a very strong-willed child. I have a feisty temperament. I have 2 kids of my own. So just know that it's going to take a little bit more time than your easygoing child. So if you have 2 children and one did this easy peasy lemon squeezy, and this next one's a little feistier, it just may take them a little bit more time to develop these things. Also, if they know you're trying to get them to calm down, they're going to push back. So sometimes it's just creating a safe space for them to feel their feels. And then when you start to notice them calming, then begin some of these strategies. So some strategies that you can try is using a feelings check-in. So tell me in this scale how you're feeling. Are you a 1? Are you a 5? Like, where are you at here? Along with visuals and colors, so that as they are gaining more awareness of this and comfort, they can start identifying by color or by number or by emotional word. So my child might say, I'm at a 5 right now, or I'm feeling red, or I am feeling angry. All of those are telling me that my child is feeling basically the same thing and how I might then respond to that. You can also use a problem-solving wheel. So for children who are having a hard time going from feeling emotions to then solving the problem that led to the emotion, a feeling or a problem-solving wheel can help with this. It gives them a visual of how they might solve the problem, and it acts as a clue. Hey, you can wait and cool off. You can walk away. You can tell them to stop. You can go find something else to do. Choose one, but you can't just sit there and pester them. You can't just hit them. Choose one of these, so that it gives them, again, something to choose from. We have 2 calm down spaces in my house, both with visuals of different ways that they can calm themselves down. You can also use this My Coping Strategies checklist, and it can be used in a lot of different ways, not even necessarily just like this picture, but it basically gives them these tools. I've learned to use I statements. I've learned that I can put puzzles together, that I can sit in my beanbag chair, I can use a sensory bottle. I get to then choose based on these coping strategies that I know how to use, which one I'm going to choose to do. And then lastly, it's the 5-finger breathing technique, which is very similar to the deep breaths and the balloon that I was mentioning before, but it's a multi-sensory approach to calming down. It's taking their hand, and as they go up, they're breathing in, and as they're going down, they're breathing out. So you go, and you basically go through all of the fingers. And so by the end, they've taken 5 deep breaths in and 5 deep breaths out. And this works very well on adults as well. I find this to be very helpful because not only are you concentrating on breathing, you're concentrating on what your hand's doing and your fingers doing. So it's distracting the brain to really get the brain to focus on calming rather than feeling in that emotion. And then at the end of the day, there are going to be children who still struggle regardless of what we do. So it's helpful to seek professional help if your child is having more tantrums or difficult behavior than other children their same age, is having a difficult or out of control, or is behaving difficultly or having out of control ways more often as she gets older. So as they get older, we're expecting the outbursts to get less and less if they're increasing. That's what we're talking about here. Is behaving in ways that are dangerous to themselves or others. And this doesn't mean like a toddler biting, but really kind of some self-harm as they get older, or starting to hurt others intentionally or because they're having an outburst. Is behaving in ways that are dangerous, difficult to discipline, or your behavior strategies aren't working. So I've tried all of these. I've really tried all of these and nothing seems to be working. Go talk to someone. They may have other strategies, or there might be something else going on. If they're very withdrawn and they're having trouble interacting with others, or if they're really having difficulty with communication and social skills that aren't consistent with children of the same age. So these are all the things that you might want to reach out for help. I find it helpful to read this and go, okay, my child is typical. they should be having emotional outbursts and telling me that they don't want to calm down, we can work through this. Or to read this and go, okay, there is something going on. I'm not crazy. I have tried everything. Maybe I do need to talk to someone. So this can kind of help both ways. So I'm available to talk to if you need someone to talk to, or to ask for support, or to say, hey, I've tried all of these, what's next? But also don't hesitate to go straight to your pediatrician or to see a psychologist. If I start to see kind of some of these things, that I'm going to refer you on. But additionally, I might just be able to provide some clear behavioral strategies to say, hey, you've tried X, Y, and Z. Let's try A, B, and C instead. So feel free to, again, email me at laurenG@childcareanswers.com. And I will see you guys on another webinar. Bye.